Golden tips for learn English faster and fluently. 1. Pay attention to pronunciation from the beginning. This is basically combining tip 6 and 7 into one piece of concrete advice. Focus on pronunciation starting at the early stages, since these problems are much more difficult to correct later on. If you correct errors at the beginning, it's much less likely that they'll become cemented, last forever. Use sites like shiportsheet.com to help identify common pronunciation symbols in minimal pairs and to hear and mimic correct pronunciation. While you're learning pronunciation, also review rhyming words to help cement pronunciation patterns. 2. Add to your vocabulary every day. Aim to learn and master at least one new word each and every day. Why not work your way through the newest additions to the Oxford English Dictionary for vocab that's culturally on point? 3. Talk without fear of making mistakes. First and foremost, you should let go of your fear of making mistakes. The process of learning, by definition, is acquiring knowledge through study, experience, or being taught. What this definition leaves out is that learning is, at the most basic level, an exercise of trial and error. So speak freely and write without worrying about whether you've gotten it right the first time around or whether it'll take a further 30 attempts. Know your level to improve your level. This is similar to tip 12, but in order to recognize your limitations, you first need to understand what they are. Tests are never fun, but sometimes they're necessary to diagnose what areas you need to improve the most. Sites like Oxford and Cambridge have their own tests, and a simple search on the internet can help you find many more. Once you've determined where your skills really are, it'll be easier to move forward in the right direction. 4. Read a lot. The human brain has an inexplicable power for processing information and making sense of what is placed before it, and reading is a truly effective way of helping your brain make those vital connections that achieve fluency. Begin your efforts with newspapers, magazines and illustrated books, where imagery can aid information processing. 5. Learn English with songs and lyrics. Before getting started, you need to select the English songs you will learn from. This is important because there are a lot of potential pitfalls. For example, try to avoid English songs that have difficult language that isn't commonly used. Aren't mainstream very popular. Nothing against independent artists, but if part of the goal is to connect with English speakers, it's probably more efficient to learn from top English songs that would give you a common language. Are too fast, which makes them hard to learn from. Don't have lyrics readily available. And now, here are my 8 tips to help you learn English with songs and music. 6. Don't translate everything. As a teacher, I notice that my students frequently have this problem. It used to be hard to look up every word in a dictionary, but with the internet and Google Translate, it has become easier than ever to get fast translations. Avoid this temptation. The reason is that if you literally translate every single word of a sentence, it will probably sound terrible to a native speaker. That's true for every language. Word-for-word translations generally don't take things like idioms, auxiliaries and preposition changes into account, and as a result it's nearly always obvious when students are translating every single word. On the other hand, if you're reading an English text and trying to translate it into your native language, it might not be as bad. It will probably waste your time and confuse you a bit, but at least it won't confuse the person you're speaking to. 7. Retrain your brain to think in English. This particular tip is one that is going to take some practice, as you'll be in a real habit of thinking in your mother tongue. You can help yourself out a little by placing post-it notes upon the key items within your home, with the item described in English. 8. The more you practice, the better and quicker you learn. Author Malcolm Gladwell proposed that, in order to become an expert at something, you need to practice it for 10,000 hours. If that sounds like a lot of hours, that's because it is. So, start putting in the hours as soon as you can. If you want to work on grammar, start with some solid tips for general grammar learning or do a quick review of some common mistakes. If you're struggling with listening skills, you can start with a general overview about listening resources available online, then move on to podcasts or audiobooks. If you prefer to add in a visual aspect, look into movies and TV shows that will help you improve your listening comprehension. Reading skills are also easy to practice, whether you want to find easy books or check out books that have been made into movies. And even reading this blog right now counts. Pronunciation and speaking are a bit more difficult to practice if you don't have a native speaker to talk with, but they're not impossible to improve. Begin with general speaking practice strategies, some of which you can use even without a partner, then learn more about websites that give online speaking opportunities. Then read some posts about improving your pronunciation. Last but certainly not least is vocabulary. Maybe you want to learn more idioms or proverbs. Or perhaps you're tired of sounding like a robot and want to learn more English slang words. Learn which words you thought were okay to use but probably aren't. Also, consider increasing your vocabulary related to specific topics, such as colors, sport-specific sports like soccer, football, health and fitness, food or airports. And really, that's just the beginning. If it seems like this tip has a lot of links, that's the point. And don't forget that all of the links in this section are all from one site, Fluently, and that there are many more language learning websites out there where you can learn more. 9. Talk to yourself out loud. Talking to yourself is key to perfecting your spoken English, so go ahead and talk yourself through your daily routine and pick up upon the sounds that you struggle over. Repeat after me. Repeat, repeat, repeat. There's no escaping it. There are few as effective a way of learning a language than repeating written tasks and spoken words over and over and over again. 10. Keep a language log or journal. Either buy a notebook or dedicate a file on your cell phone or computer to your English learning experience. Every time you learn a new important word, add it to your log, along with a definition and an example, if possible. You can also write other experiences in English if you want more writing practice. The benefit of a log like this is that you get to practice a bit of writing, of course, but it's also good to reinforce new vocabulary. There's a belief that in order to understand and retain a new vocabulary word, you need to use it in context at least 3 times. Keeping a log can help. Additionally, if you look back at earlier entries in your English log, you'll be able to reflect at how far you've progressed, and you'll probably be surprised and motivated when you compare that to how much you know now. Do not forget to comment on your personal tips to learn English